Prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown. The Haunter's Tale Podcast, where every whisper, every shadow is a doorway to fear.
And welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. So my name is Kim Kiff and I work for Ripley Entertainment. It's Ripley's, believe it or not, worldwide entertainment. And I run all of our attractions here in St. Augustine. But one of my passions is definitely haunted themed attractions. In Myrtle Beach, I ran the Haunted Adventure. And then here we actually run our company's only authentic paranormal investigation.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, well, and St. Augustine is isn't it the most haunted city?
Ghost on every corner.
Ghosts on every corner. So, believe it or not, Ripley's, I'm a big fan of Ripley's and what they've done throughout, my life. I grew up actually reading the books. They used to have the little Ripley's, believe it or not, the cartoons or the animated drawings that were in the newspaper. They would collect those, and I had a series of those. So I remember going, Ripley's in St. Augustine. Was that the first one?
It was. We call it the mothership. So this is the very first permanent Ripley's, believe it or not, and it's also the only building that we own that Robert Ripley himself ever set foot in.
Wow, that's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I remember going to Ripley's when let's see, well, as a kid, right? My first couple of trips to St. Augustine. I lived in Florida on and off my entire life. So yeah, I love going there. There in the old jail. The old jail was
Yes.
certainly creepy as
Yep.
well.
Great attraction.
Yeah.
Some people chase the mainstream, others crave what hides in shadows. Welcome to Indie Horror Junkie, the home of filmmakers, writers, artists, and fans who live for the strange, the bold, the unapologetically independent. From blood-soaked short films and underground features to creator spotlights, reviews, and horror you won't find anywhere else. No studio filters, no safe bets, just raw imagination and fearless storytelling. If you love horror that takes risks, horror that bleeds passion, horror made by creators who refuse to play it safe, then you're already one of us. Indie Horror Junkie. Feed your fear. Support the underground. Indie Horror Junkie, where independent horror lives and refuses to die.
How do you approach, the the art of creating this kind of environment? I mean, obviously you like haunted stuff. You've said you're a
Yeah.
big fan of haunts. What's your approach to creating something like that?
Well, it's fluid. It's constantly evolving because people are changing. When I was a teacher when I first came to Ripley's and started at the aquarium and then eventually got into some of our haunted businesses. And to be honest with you, when I moved here to St. Augustine and they said, "Oh, you're going to be running a ghost tour," I was like, "I'm going to do what?" So it's been a process of watching and seeing how people react and just really diving in and learning about the paranormal, through a couple of strange experiences I've had myself, started delving into other things like near-death experiences and how to tie all of that together and bring it into an authentic experience for our guests. Now, we're very, very lucky in that we have this beautiful old creepy castle already. So, I mean, the stage is set. We just have to add the life or death, if you will, to the experience for our guests. And it just works very well, blending the environment with the authenticity of doing something like that here. There's a lot of ghost tours in St. Augustine, and they tell you ghost stories. And we used to do that. And I would watch people, and I know my reaction to that. So we wanted to stop doing that and make it a real hands-on paranormal experience.
That's great. So, um, you said some experiences yourself. So let's talk about that. So
Okay.
have you always been interested in haunting and spooky stuff, or is it something that you just kind of started when you said you were a teacher first. So like
Yeah.
when you were kind of into the Ripley's world, is that something that started to manifest around you?
Yes and no. It kind of started with my fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Swartwood. I was a good student, but I didn't like to read. And so she told me over the summer that I had to find a book and read it. So I went to the mall and went to the bookstore with my mother, and I saw this book staring at me, and I said, "That's what I want." She's like, "Kim, that has 1,400 pages. You're never going to read it." And I'm like, "It's what I want." And it was Stephen King's The Stand.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was a rainy weekend, and I took that home and I literally finished The Stand in a little over 3 days. And that started my love of Stephen King, and still a big fan of King, and just finished one of his newest creations and started the next last night. So that's kind of where it started. But then, as far as the near-death experience and whatnot, I had an experience with my own father when he passed away. And right before he passed away, there was a very lucid moment where he sat upright and he was speaking clearly, and he looked like a little kid on Christmas morning. And he asked if we'd seen them. And I said, "Did we see what, Dad?" And he described in great definition the women that had visited him and the things he saw. And that's what really got me interested in the near death and afterlife aspect of things. And then, of course, coming here, one of the things that happened to me here was I went into a new gallery. It's a gallery where we have an exhibit called the Mummy Cat. And we've had a number of paranormal investigators that have come in, TV shows, all sorts of stuff. And they always said that room was what they call the portal. So walked into that room. I was taking my staff up to see a new gallery that we were about to open. As I walked in, I got punched in the back, and I got punched in the back hard. And I
Oh,
thought it
wow.
was somebody from my staff. So I turned around and they hadn't joined me yet. There was nobody there. And that particular room here is the only room where we have had negative experiences. People getting scratched on their abdomen, people throwing up, people feeling a tightness in their chest and an inability to breathe. And the room has a little bit of a dark history, so there's potential there.
Oh, well, share what that dark history is.
Okay, so legend of the Ripley's Castle is that there was a fire here in 1944, and a young woman had checked in early that morning. She was crying, smelled of alcohol, smoking cigarettes. She came in and checked into her room, and shortly thereafter there was a fire. Now, this was a hotel back in the day that people, rich and famous, came to, and people were allowed to check in with only the letter X if they did not want their identity known. And also, some people back then weren't writing, it wasn't a time where school was for everybody.
Yeah.
The night before, a gentleman had checked in with only the letter X. So, also in the penthouse was a dear friend of Marjorie Keenan Rawlings and Norton Baskin. They were the owners at the time. And anyway, 10 o'clock in the morning, this fire is raging. Betty, the young woman, they blamed her for smoking a cigarette and passing out, and they think that that was maybe what started the fire. But there's another theory. And somebody said that they saw the gentleman who signed in as Mr. X carrying something wrapped in a rug over his shoulder. Betty was not found in her room. She was found in the bathroom, in the bathtub, with a towel around her neck. So Ruth Pickering, who was in the penthouse, the guest of Marjorie and Norton, was also found in the bathtub with a towel wrapped around her neck. Neither of the women had any burns. Um, the woman in the penthouse, Ruth, was a known smoker. Her window was never locked. She always went out on the window to the fire escape to smoke her cigarettes. And people said they saw her at the window, and she could have easily gotten out, but she didn't. So there's a lot of mystery.
Wow.
That room where I talked about the mummy cat being was Betty's room, and
Wow.
that's where the fire started. There's a room downstairs that is also very active that they call the witness room, because a lot of people report a heavy feeling of sadness, and they think that's the gentleman that saw him carrying the rug. So
Wow.
yeah, lots to process
Real.
here.
I'm author Mark Muncy,
And I'm author Erica Lance.
and this is Eerie Travels. Greetings, travelers.
Join us as we travel through folklore, myths, monsters, legends, and dark history.
Now, we'll be your guide to the spooky side of reality as we discuss cryptids, paranormal, and all things preternatural.
Sometimes we find the truth is way scarier than fiction.
We're on twice a week on your favorite podcast platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube.
We have amazing guests from all of the areas of the strange and unusual, including witnesses, investigators, and more.
Now, with Erica's curiosity and ridiculous array of pop culture and true crime knowledge.
And Mark's decades of experience diving into folklore and the legends with the truth that's behind them.
So join us, travelers, as we take you to the edge of reality, and we'll see you on the other side.
So you read this, you read The Stand. How old were you?
Oh my gosh, I was like 13, I think.
Oh, wow.
No,
So
I had to be younger than that. So I'd say maybe 11.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so that opened up the world of Stephen King. Were you a fan of spooky stuff before that, or was Stephen King really your gateway?
He was my gateway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I started, of course, I started reading everything he wrote at that point. And then I got a little into Dean Koontz, started
Hmm.
reading some of that. So yeah, no, that was absolutely the gateway. And Stephen King opened that door.
And what do you love so much about Stephen King? What was the what kind of drew you in? I mean, I know
So,
I'm a huge Stephen King fan myself. I'm sure everybody that's listening to this has some
yep.
experience with one or all of Stephen King's work. But what was it for you?
So I don't scare easily.
Mhm.
When I ran the haunted attraction in Myrtle Beach, my actors would constantly pop out of places, try to hide, do things to scare me, and it never worked. I remember in the 80s watching the slasher movies and going to all that. And to be honest with you, they didn't scare me. Stephen King has a way of intertwining reality. And I mean, let's face it, sometimes reality can be scarier than fiction.
Yeah.
And you look at The Stand back then, and the thought of a pandemic and the things surrounding it were just terrifying. Now, if you were to read that book today, I think you'd probably read it very differently now that we've been through that.
Yeah.
But a lot of The Long Walk, I remember reading that forever ago and
Mm.
watched the movie recently with my son. And these are things that take reality and make potential reality scary.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, for me, the scariest, I mean, I love Stephen King. And I think the very first one I read was The Shining,
Hmm.
because I saw the movie first, and then I was like, I want to read this.
Right,
And then that opened it up for me. And, discovering that The Shining was so much more than the movie, although I'm a huge fan of the movie, I
right.
love both of those things separately. But the one that always got me was Pet Cemetery.
Yes.
That was one that I literally had a sense of dread turning the
Yeah.
page
Yep.
because what he did to you,
Absolutely.
and I don't want to spoil it, but there's a whole section in the middle that is a roller coaster that, you know, I still will never forgive him for.
Understood.
Um, yeah,
Understood. Well, and
yeah,
Cujo was
yeah,
another one. That
yeah,
was it's a potential reality-based book.
yeah.
And I found Cujo, and The Stand, by the way, was my second read.
Okay.
I'm sorry, not The Stand, The Shining.
Shining, yeah.
But Cujo was just this reality. I mean, didn't have a huge cast in the movie. You basically had a couple people and the dog.
Right.
Um, but I find that stuff far scarier than somebody with a chainsaw or an axe hiding in a cabin in the woods with a bunch of teenagers.
Right. So when you were working in Myrtle Beach, what was your process like? So was it already designed when you got there, or were you part of the process? How did you train your actors? Let's talk about that a little bit because,
Sure.
a lot of this is about the haunt community and everybody has a different approach, and I'd love to hear yours.
Absolutely. So when I first came, it was my first experience with an actual haunted attraction, and it was done. But there were things that I wanted to do better. And again, it goes back to that reality. I wanted to play into people's innate fears more than just, the guy chasing you with a chainsaw and that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. So I did add some different things. I added an area called claustrophobia,
Hmm.
where as you walk through the dark, the walls closed in on you and
Hmm.
kind of I don't want to say crushed, but pinned you in there for a minute. I added insects. We added an area where you would step on these cockroaches that would crunch under your feet.
Hmm.
And then there were these things that came out from the sides that wrapped around your ankles. And you're in the pitch black dark, so you can't tell what it
Right.
is. So again, I think when I did that, I added more of the reality based, the things in real life that scare people.
Yeah.
As far as our actors go, we were just so fortunate to find this group of people who were just like born for this.
Hmm.
Um, these guys lived and breathed the whole deal. They took their makeup very seriously. They took the haunt very seriously. And there wasn't a ton of training needed, to be honest with you, because these guys just had it in their blood. And so
Hmm.
for me, it was hiring the right people.
Yeah.
And are these people that I would have hired to sell tickets or, to run the Mermaid Boutique or something like that? Yeah, no. Um, but they were perfectly adapted for that attraction. And honestly, I think if I were going to look at that, looking back today, they probably taught me more than I taught
Mhm.
them because they were just so into this stuff.
It's interesting because I've worked on a couple of haunts in my career, and one of the things I used to love is when I would walk through the haunts or the experiences with the guest, or just
Hmm.
even following a trail of guests, or if I were a guest myself.
Hmm.
And I love people attempting to scare me. I love it.
Yes.
And
Yep.
one of the things I used to do is if someone could scare me, I would stop and applaud them because it just made me so happy. But you
Yes.
know, um, it's interesting too. So what was the theme of remind me the theme of the Ripley's haunted attraction?
So it didn't really, it was Ripley's Haunted Adventure. It was based
Haunted
on the
adventure, yeah.
Grimsby Streeper Casket Company. But one of the other things we did when I was there is we changed the theming here and there. So for Christmas, we changed it to Nightmare on Elf Street. We had these horrible little elves running around, and we actually one year did The Shining. So we used
Oh
to do
wow.
the month of October. We would switch up and have these fright nights. We would have some haunted actors come by. We had Leatherface one year, Pinhead one year. But then we kind of went to theming. So one year we got a whole bunch of fake snow because the building from the outside kind of had an overlooky feeling anyway.
Hmm.
And we had a door and we cut a panel in it so the guy could take the axe and it would open up and he'd stick his face through like Jack did.
Yeah.
And we were able to we had the little girls in their dresses, the twins,
Yeah.
and I created these pinafores that went over. So when you looked at them in one place, they were completely white, but then they could pin them up. And when they pinned the overlay up, it was all covered with blood. We had the tricycle, we had everything. And that
Oh
was, I
wow.
think, one of my favorite ones, and people loved it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, um, why do you think why do you think horror remains such a powerful storytelling vessel? I mean, especially now, these are challenging times,
Yep.
but horror still endures. I mean, like right now, I think one of the biggest movies that just came out is called Primate. It opened
Mhm.
last Friday. I went and saw it,
Yeah.
and very much Cujo, very much the
Yeah.
Cujo vibe. But why do you think horror endures in these times?
I think it's an escape, to be honest. Something that's more terrifying than what we're going through right now is probably the best way to put it. I just watched the Welcome to Derry series that came
Yeah.
out. Um, and actually, I thought it was very well done. There's not a lot of things, modern horror, that I say I feel like that's well done, but I
Yeah.
felt like that was pretty well done.
Don't
Um,
think I'll ever eat pickles again, though.
I right. But I do. I think that sometimes people need extremes to make reality seem better. And there's a lot going on in our world right now, like you said, and there's a lot of people that are scared right now. And I think sometimes you turn in two directions. You either turn in something that's totally not scary and lighthearted and feel good to try and escape that, or some people turn to something that might be scarier
Hmm.
to make what is happening in their life not seem so scary.
Mm. So you talked a little bit about Ripley's haunted attraction during the month of October. What is the month of October like for you?
So we just focus on our overnights. We do some actual overnight paranormal investigations here, where people come in around 11:30. We get them checked in, and they leave at 6 or 7 in the morning. And it gives them an opportunity to spend the whole night here. We get some that are like really into investigations, and they bring their own equipment. We have a lot of equipment available here for people that want to use what we have. We have people here that will lead different exercises, or you can just go off on your own and investigate. If you want to sleep, feel free to bring a sleeping bag and a pillow and just shack up somewhere. But we do the overnights, and then we focus a little heavier on our actual investigations.
Oh wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, they're
And
fun. A lot of the diehard paranormal folks love the overnights.
wow. So for you though, like does that happen on Halloween night?
Usually, yeah, this year
Yeah.
it did. It
Wow.
depends on if it falls on a weekend, because it's tough to run something on a Tuesday, with
Yeah,
people having to work. So we try to do it on either a Friday or Saturday, closest to the actual
sure.
31st.
Sure. Um, okay, so what's the scariest experience you've had? What's something that you've experienced recently or in your life that scared you more than anything else?
Well, I think the getting punched in the back was
Yeah.
probably the first one. But we've had some others. Like there was one day, obviously, the fire in 1944. There was one day that I was at my desk and I smelled smoke, and nobody else smelled smoke. Everybody kept telling me I was crazy. There was absolutely nothing happening.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, 10 minutes later, the fire alarms went off.
Oh wow.
And nobody found anything. Nobody ever smelled anything except for me. So
Yeah.
that was kind of scary. Like, okay, what's going on with me
Yeah.
here that I knew this was coming and nobody else did?
Yeah.
And we've had little things. We had a jewelry spinner in the gift shop just start spinning, and some of the jewelry was flying off of it. Weird things like that. Those are and to be honest with you, they don't scare me anymore. Um, During hurricanes, I generally stay in this building. Don't tell anybody. Too late, I guess. But my son and I have stayed here overnight many, many times. And I'm very comfortable with it all now. So it doesn't scare me anymore. But the first time when I took that shot to the back, that was the one that was like, oh, okay, maybe
Yeah.
there's something going on here.
Yeah. What about in pop culture outside of the building? Is there anything that you've seen recently or something that you've gone, wow, I mean, you said you just watched the Welcome to Derry, but
Yep.
any movie or any book or anything like that, you're like, wow, that really checked the mark for me getting the goose
Yeah.
pimples and everything.
Stranger Things I thought was good, but it was good for what it was. It was okay. But honestly, not much. And I'll be honest and tell you why, because I have just been so immersed in work and the things that I'm doing, I can't even tell you the last time I read a book, to be honest with you. I can promise you it was a Stephen King. Actually,
Uh-huh.
I got Skeleton Crew again
Oh
and
yeah.
started going back and reading some of those just because my time frame allowed for the short stories
Yeah.
more than it did anything of any length.
Yeah.
But no, I can't say that I have really seen anything recently. I like the dairy, but nothing that's really struck me as, whoa, this is different. Of course, with the onset of AI now, we're getting into some new elements and new possibilities. But AI is so tricky because people love it or hate it. And there doesn't seem to be any intermediate with AI right now.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be interesting to see where it can go.
Yeah, I agree. It's very polarizing. You're either like you recognize
Yeah,
that it's great, or you look at it and you're like, okay, it's the end of the world, and Jim Cameron was right, and it's going to turn into a Terminator. You know,
yeah,
um, it's interesting to me, like, Stranger Things, I think it was phenomenal,
yeah,
especially to be that good for 5 seasons, and
yeah,
I, I think it ended really well. Um, Although I think it could have ended probably 3 episodes shorter. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
but so you have a son, yes?
yeah, I do.
And how old is he?
He is 22.
And when he was growing up, what was it like to grow up with this kind of experience at his fingertips? His mom was kind of the queen of, of one of the best haunts in the world.
Well, he had a very different upbringing than a lot of children, and I'll admit that. So it was just the two of us for from the time he was 4 years old on.
Yeah.
Um, and basically, he grew up under my desk. I remember the first time we had an eye popper come to Ripley's, and he got to experience the theatrics of, we had a guy that would staple things to his skin. We had all
Wait, wait,
these
wait, wait, wait.
interesting,
An eye
yeah, yeah,
popper. What is
yeah.
an eye popper? Is that what I think it is?
It's
It's
somebody who
one.
can actually pop their eyes out of their sockets.
Okay. So how
Yeah.
old was he when he saw that?
Yeah, he was about 4. I always
Okay.
told him growing up that he was probably going to need a lot of therapy one day, and we
Yeah.
still joke about that.
Yeah.
But then he jumped right in. He loves the performers. He's the first one out there to help the sword swallowers, or when the guy needed somebody to staple something to his chest, he was right there.
Yeah.
It really gave him, I think, a very well-rounded perspective of the world and people that are different
Yeah.
and things that are different. But eventually he worked his way up. Here, he's one of when he's home and not at college, he actually does a lot of our paranormal investigations. He leads them.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
he does a lot of the presentations. He's actually done some of the overnights on his own. And he loves it. Yeah,
Oh, that's great.
he's starting now to dabble in King himself. He just got one of the short story books, and he's starting to get into that. He loved The Long Walk. We watched that together,
Yeah.
and we watched The Dairy while he was home
Yeah.
from college. And so yeah, he's starting now more so to get into that realm.
So for what was Halloween like for him? So you're the mom, and I mean, was it spent around the area, or was it a traditional trick or treat, or?
When he was younger, it was a traditional trick or treat, but as he got older, he started doing the overnights here, and he
Yeah.
loved them. One interesting thing I will tell you, though, that came about after my dad passed away. So Cameron was 3 when my dad
Mhm.
died. And sometime I didn't tell him when my dad passed away at first. I wanted to give myself a minute to
Of course.
process. So the next morning, he came in and he jumped on my bed like he did to wake me up. And then he immediately laid down and fell asleep. And while he was sleeping, he started talking in his sleep. And he said, I know, I know. And he's like, Grandpa, I said, I know. So it was almost like dad was talking to him. And then for about 2 years after that, he would wake up some mornings and he would come and tell me stories about my dad. And he told me one time that and there's a little bit of an It tie-in, but of course at that age he hadn't watched it. He told me that my dad had visited him. He described him in great detail, said that he was more of a head, what he was kind of see-through. And he said he told him not to worry about him, that his job in heaven was handing out balloons to little kids. And he had a red balloon in his hand, which again I find ironic. Um,
Wow.
but he would wake up and tell these stories about grandpa visiting him at night and having conversations with him. And he was just a little guy, too little for some of that. So that was also kind of something that piqued my interest in the whole near death and afterlife experience.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I it's interesting to me, like to have that kind of positive experience with something like that. I really appreciate you sharing that because, it is when you hear something like that, it gives you a sense of peace that
Yes.
there is still some type of connection,
Yes.
and that whatever the finite amount of time we are on in this existence, maybe there's a tendril or some type of connection that we can still communicate to people that are important to us. I think that's very comforting and sweet to me, and I
Yeah,
appreciate
and
you
and
sharing that.
he was never scared of it. I mean,
Yeah,
he was always I don't even think he cried after that. He was always very at peace with it, and I almost feel like it was because there was some connection there, and because he still had that communication, if you will,
yeah,
for a period of time.
yeah, sure.
Their names are legendary. Their creations have haunted your nightmares. And they all have one thing in common. They love monsters.
Available on Amazon Prime and Roku.
So, okay, you love Stephen King. Here's a question I ask all of our haunters. If you could continue any horror story, book, or film, what would it be and why? What do you feel needs to be continued?
That was the hardest one for me. And I think if I were to go back, I feel like The Long Walk left me hanging.
Mhm.
I feel like there was a lot more that needed to be explored with the characters, and what happened to the them after this. What happened to society after this? Did that effort at the end, to save his friend, have any
Yeah,
impact or enough of an impact on people to make a change
right.
with what was going on in the world? I mean, it was very Hunger Gamey when you kind of get
Yeah,
down to it.
yeah,
And I felt, and I know why King does it, and I get that. But I really felt like I could run more with that, and I wanted to run more with that.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and the movie, I really too, it was grueling. I
Yeah,
mean, it really captured what my imagination captured when I read that book, or that
yeah.
short. Um, I thought they did a really good job, and I also love that Mark Hamill, between that and Life of Chuck, is having an amazing act three.
I
The
didn't know that that was him at first. My son was like, "Mom, that's Mark," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're right."
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I actually, there's talk about him being nominated for that, which would be amazing because I
Hmm.
think there's, you know, up until a point you're like, yeah, it's Luke Skywalker, and now that being able to create something also as
Yes,
enduring would be fantastic.
yes,
Um, so Halloween, you're always working.
yes. Always.
So, where did you grow up? What area did you grow up?
I grew up in upstate New York, in an area. Well, for part of it, I lived on Cuca Lake, and part of it, we lived in a little town of Bath that was very near Cuca Lake. And Finger Lakes area, grapes, wineries, small town, kind of thing. You dress up on Halloween and your parents made your costume from scratch.
Yeah.
Or you went to the corner store and bought a Casper mask that was plastic and hot and miserable. And you
Yeah.
went to the town square and you did the whole costume contest thing. And then you walked house to house with no parents. I mean, I remember being, 5 maybe, just going house to house with a bunch of kids, and
Yeah.
there wasn't a parent in the group anywhere. And my parents
Yeah.
were really strict, so that looking back, that's one of the things that amazes me most about my childhood is the freedoms that we had as children that yeah, they don't get today.
Yeah. So Halloween, it sounds like you had that traditional nostalgic experience,
Yes.
but
Yep.
and it's interesting because I think anybody that loves Halloween has this view that's the people that are from the northern states actually experience, right? And the
Hmm.
southern states don't so much. I have been lucky enough to be in areas like Pennsylvania and Ohio for Halloween for a few years, and again, like just the feel of the world for Halloween
Yes.
is just so much, so rich and so, the colors and everything. So you had that as a child, and what was your did you love Halloween as a kid? And what was
Yeah, I did. And I have to tell you that that's one of the things that I miss because Halloween in Florida, it's a little bit like Christmas in Florida.
yeah,
It just feels like something's missing because in the north you get the colors and the smell of leaves on the ground
yeah,
and the crisp cold air when you're out there and you see in your breath while you're trick or treating.
yeah,
And that generally doesn't happen here in Florida.
right.
So I don't know. To me, it's a very different experience. But yeah, I miss the whole feel of fall in general. But Halloween just feels more like Halloween when you're someplace where you get the whole effect, the whole
Right.
experience.
Well, and I think that too is why haunts are so popular in October because they
Yeah.
allow they allow the suspension of disbelief, right? There
Yep.
might not be that perfect autumn sunset that goes into dusk, but they make up for it. So
Yeah.
here's what's your favorite Halloween treat?
Oh, this is so embarrassing because I'm a candy corn girl.
Oh,
And
wow.
so many people like are just against the candy corn and it has to be the original with the yellow, orange, and white. I don't want
Sure.
the ones with the brown or any of that.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I don't hate a little candy corn here and there.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm one of those people that it's the idea of candy corn.
Yes.
Now the initial taste of candy corn, but then after about three or four pieces, it's like I'd rather have a almond joy. But
No,
I,
I
I
have to agree. I don't
yeah,
do it in volume, but there's also something about it sitting on a bowl on your end
yeah,
table that
yeah,
again just screams it's Halloween.
yeah. Well, and I don't know if you know this or not, but in the original Psycho movie, Norman Bates, Alfred
Hmm.
Hitchcock had him eating candy corn. And
That's
it kind
funny.
of it kind of got lost because of the color, but that was what he was eating, his snack, and it was kind of this little like, you know,
Yeah.
tie-in that Norman liked things a little. He liked Halloween, he liked darkness, things like that. Um,
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I actually also recently watched the Bates Hotel series
mhm. Yeah,
with Freddie Hightower. Or was
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But that I thought that was really well done too.
Yeah,
I
I
enjoyed
mean,
that.
for I sometimes I worry that I don't want to know my boogeyman very well,
Yeah.
but that character of Norman Bates, you do want to know that, and
Yes.
I felt that was really great and really paid homage to the fact that Anthony Perkins was amazing and
Yes.
never stepped out of. Once he did that role, he could never step out of it, and
Nope. That was it.
the switch that happened, obviously, spoiler alert, but I
Yeah.
won't, but the switch that happened betrayed people. So then he became this actor that no one trusted for the rest of his career. He always had to play some type of villain or somebody that was
Yeah.
untrustworthy. Um,
Typecast.
yeah. So what's coming up in 2026 for your Halloween? What do you got planned that if you can tell us?
I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't know because I won't be here.
Oh,
So yeah, I am on the tail end of my career here in St. Augustine, and I will be moving on to a new venture with the company that I can't talk too much about at this time. We've got our new folks here that are going to be taking my spot, and they love haunted stuff as well. In fact, I've worked with them for many years, and they did some seasonal investigations in Ocean City, Maryland at Ripley's. And they are really, really into the paranormal aspect and the haunted aspect. And I know that they have some really great ideas along those lines for this building as a whole.
hmm.
So, yeah, I think that there's going to be great things in our future. And I unfortunately just will not be here to be a part of them. But
No.
hopefully, I will be able to carry that on somewhere else.
So are you going to stay in the area or are you moving?
Moving. Yep, I'll
Oh,
still be
wow.
with the company, but I
Yeah.
will be in a different area.
Different location. Wow.
Yep.
Well, we wish you well,
Thank you.
and I mean, I can't wait. I've not experienced Ripley's at Halloween, so it's now on my bucket list.
You should.
Uh, and just kind of, as we kind of one last question for you.
Sure.
When at the end of your career, what will
Mhm.
you have been most proud of?
Oh, wow. Well, something that we haven't talked about actually that has nothing to do with this. I developed a program here at Ripley's called Ripley Leadership Academy, and
Mhm.
it allows me to tie teaching with my love of Ripley's and our company. So I'm actually getting ready to go to Texas to run a program, and I train most of the up and coming managers and leaders in our company. I have a couple of different levels. There's a level one, two, and three. And yeah, so I think that is the legacy. We've had over 130 people that have participated in these. And I think I hope my legacy is that I've been able to impart some knowledge on these folks so that they can carry some of these things on in the future with the company.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being our guest today,
Thank
and
you for having me.
we look forward to hearing your journey as it continues. I can't wait to hear what's next for you at Ripley's.
I can't wait either. I'm excited.